Hello, everybody, and welcome to this live webinar today, where we're exploring freedom from the perfectionist voice within, so that you can take action in your life, in your business, in whatever direction is currently calling you, but you keep getting stuck on. So I'm Grace Kelly, for those of you that don't know me. I'm a transformational coach and I run an international coaching business, hosting clients on retreat from all around the world, normally here in Italy, but during the current pandemic, most of my work is taking place online. So it's really lovely to be with a group of you here today that are online and are able to show up this way from all different parts of the world. My desire for you on this particular call is that you will start to gain some freedom of mind around that voice within that keeps you stuck, that keeps us all in some sort of tizzy or frenzy or blocked scenario. So I have seen a lot around this area that I want to help you with today. But most importantly, I want it to be relevant to you. So I know many of you are going to catch the replay, but for those of you that are here, I am totally open and do much better with your questions than me talking at you. So during the course of this time together, whether you're a current client of mine or you're somebody who's simply following along, please feel free to bring your question forward, because it's often very relevant for everybody listening. So yeah, let's get started. With that in mind, I'm curious just as to why you showed up today. So I'm going to start with you, Marie-Pierre, if that's okay. Why was this important for you to show up today, and what questions do you have, if any?
Hi. Hello, everyone. Hi. Why did I show up today? And what? That's a lot of. First, I'm one of Grace. We already work together, so we know it. I will go straight to the question because.
Sure.
What happened is I've started a coaching business. I think that was 5 years ago when we met. Things happen, life happened. So, and I've let go of my business to go back to being a lawyer. So I worked as a lawyer again. And now I'm still thinking I have this persistent, some people call it magnificent obsession, like I cannot give up on the coaching field and I want to start my business again. And of course, time passed by, and now I have this like the perfectionist voice is even bigger because I did it before. It didn't work as I wanted but for me it was not big enough to sustain my lifestyle in Paris. So, but I had results. That's the funny thing. And people told me, but you did make money. Why you didn't continue? I was like, okay, well. So my question is how to feel confident. I think it's again a confidence and self-worth. It's almost like I did the training, I did the certification, I did amazing things in my life. I'm from Indian Ocean and I worked in different countries. I bought an apartment in Paris. All of this on my own. I mean, I feel that I come from far, I achieved a lot. And I can offer guidance, but there's still a voice within me that said, you haven't done enough, you haven't proved yourself enough. Like, who are you to do that? And so each time I want to do something, I'm just stopped. Despite of like I invested more than 25K in coaching. It's not like I feel like I've done work on myself. And I also did the certification, like it's been years. So I don't know what's I know I have to make a decision because I cannot be between two things for so long. So
how do you know you've got a perfectionist voice going on, Marie-Pierre?
because when I want to create a free resource, like a free PDF or a video, or I want to share something,
It's never good enough. Is that what you said? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So just getting a feel for where you're at and what your questions are and what you're struggling with. So thank you for sharing that, Marie-Pierre, for being the first to go forward.
Sorry, I know it might be a lot. I don't know.
No, that's fine. Thank you. This will really help you today. This will really help you today. So stick with it, stay with it. Share with me where you're at. Tell me a little bit about what your question is or what your questions are. Kajal, why did you come today? What's your burning question?
Okay, so two things. I've recently started a coaching business based on 3 principles, and my way of working is usually with groups. And it's always coming up to a workshop or a group coaching session that I'm doing. Coming up to that, there is this the perfectionism in me wants to get everything right. So that's one. And the second is I'm also a singer. And again, when it comes to performing, nowadays we have online performances, virtual performances. And again, when something is coming up, like something is coming up next Thursday, so it's always these things. What if it doesn't go well? How much should I prepare? So there's a lot of effort in trying to get it right. And I think that effort doesn't help, that striving doesn't help. So that's what I was looking help for.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Kajal. Kevin, would you be open to sharing what drew you here today and any burning question you have?
Yeah, sure. So I heard about this through being part of Mavis's, yours and Mavis's program as well. I'm a GP in Lancashire, and I've been a full-time GP for 12 years. And having done that for a very long time, I now want to transition part-time into coaching, so I can help people at a much deeper level than I can in 10-minute consultations in general practice in the UK, particularly around mental health. I spend 30, 40, 50% of my day, dealing with stress, anxiety, depression. And, I know that medication and traditional psychological therapy are just not the answer. So I know I can help people at a much deeper level. Obviously, with the coronavirus pandemic, I dropped down to 3 days a week general practice with 2 days a week dedicated to moving the coaching forward. But with coronavirus and the demands that there's been on primary care, there's been a big need for me to go back and work in general practice, which for me, after 12 years, is incredibly easy to do. I get paid very well. I know exactly what I'm doing, but I find that I get railroaded into doing what I have been doing because I can do it and it's easy. And establishing my coaching business is more difficult well, it's not difficult. I can learn strategies and techniques that will help me to scale my business. But when you get offered something on a plate which is easy and pays well, compared to doing something that's has a bit more, there's a, I have to devote more time and energy and learning and doing new things. It's just easier to go back to doing what I've done. So I suppose with Marie Pierre as well, there's some similarities there. So yeah, I'm not sure it's so much perfectionist approach, but there's clearly something within me that I'm kind of resisting really putting the pedal to the metal on the coaching side of things when I've got what I perceive to be as an easier option.
Yeah. Okay. Great, Kevin. Thank you for sharing. It's so nice to get to know where you're at and where people are coming from at this stage, because people show up differently. So it's very helpful to know where you're at. Casey, would you be open to sharing with us what drew you here today and any burning question you might have? Oh, I'll just unmute you, darling. Thank you. Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, hi everybody. So I'm Casey. What drew me here today was just really I'm starting a coaching business at the moment. I'm just finished my qualifications and really I just have a lot of questions around getting it out there and the best ways to do that. I think I'm probably a little bit worried about like how I'm perceived and picking a niche because it's quite new for me. So yeah, that's kind of what drew me here today.
Yeah, thank you. And are you in Ireland? Do I hear an Irish accent?
Yeah, I'm from
Nice.
Dublin. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. I went to university at UCD, so I know it well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I went to DCU. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Good. So it sounds like quite a few of you are in the I want to move from where I am to what I'd really love to do boat. Tiffany, is that where you're at too? Do you want to share what's your burning question today?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I don't have a burning question right now. I just know that when I show up live, to listen to you, my mind just starts to figure things out on its own without me trying to force anything. So I'm just here to absorb what you have to say and hopefully get some peace around the next step. I was fired from my job 2 weeks ago. And so I've had this idea to go into some form of coaching and combining it with learning languages. So that's where I'm at with wanting to move forward because I really don't want to go back to another job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing. And I think that's a really good place for us to kick off today, especially for people that are listening that maybe aren't familiar with what Tiffany just shared. A big part of the way I work with people and a big part of the way that I personally have transformed from having a very effortful experience of trying to run a business to a more graceful experience of life and business in general has been in that settling down, that insecure perfectionist noise in my head. And it's not always particularly easy to convey and communicate what that is or why that's important. But I want you to know that even in my lack of ability to put it into perfect words, I still have, and my clients still have, people coming to them or wanting more from them. And so for me, that really turns this whole idea of needing to market yourself correctly and get it right, it turns that on its head. In fact, it really goes against the idea that that's why people come to you. And I used to think that was what you needed to do. You know, you needed to have a niche, and you needed to have a perfectly articulated way of telling people what you can help them with. And you needed to have already designed a program and already have it out there. Well, none of that's actually true. As Tiffany just shared, there's a feeling people get from you when you want to be of service that has them show up time and again. And there's a feeling people are hungry for, especially in the world today with everything that's going on, that if you can allow yourself to be more interested in that service and that feeling that you bring to people, that feeling of wanting to help, that feeling of being in a grounded space within yourself, that moves mountains. And I understand it's difficult to trust that when you're starting out, because it looks like if you just have the right words and the right website and you just get all the right ducks in a row, then that's going to be your saving grace. I hope that my stories inspire you to see that that's optional. Having the ducks in a row is optional, and it often comes later. Some of you that are here have been on the journey already of trying to get a business going with the techniques, with the strategies, with the correct marketing, only to discover that people still didn't show up that much, or it wasn't sustainable long term, or there was always just something that had you running back to the day job. Well, that's hopeful, because that's letting us know it's not really about the perfect ducks in a row. It's not really about the perfect techniques. And that actually there must be something else that keeps you in business, that keeps people coming back to you, that keeps people showing up with what you've got to offer, even if it's not perfectly articulated or perfectly priced or perfectly photographed. You know, what I'm sharing here goes against the common approach. The common approach to getting started or getting going or sustaining yourself tends to be about willpower. It tends to be about efforting. It tends to be more about going out to get clients or get your business going. And this graceful approach I would like to remind you of, because that's all I'm really doing today. This graceful approach is to remind you that your desire to be of service in a new way, or in a bigger way, or in a deeper way, is the driving force for everything that happens next. And people underestimate that desire, and they get lost in the how-to of it all. And they underestimate that desire, and I love that word, it comes from the Latin desidere, and desidere means from the Father. Now you can say from the universe, you can say from spirit, from source. Don't get caught up in the language. It's just to share with you that desire that comes from within you is not actually something that you've made up or that you have intellectualized and thought is a good idea. You either have that desire calling you or you don't. You know, and Marie-Pierre is a beautiful case here, even though she has gone back to, you know, a position as a lawyer, that desire to still go towards her coaching business, that's bigger. You know, when I hear people talk about that, that appears to be bigger than a good idea. It's something that keeps calling you. So I suppose that's the first place I'd like you to get real with yourselves. If you're going to have this transition to this service that you want to have, sorry about the internet. Can you hear me okay, Amy? Yeah? Okay. This desire to be of service, maybe a good start, a good place for you to start right now is to really consider, you know, how strong is that in you? Because I can promise you, if that is strong, any obstacle, judgmental voice, any worrying about what people will think, any discouragement along the way won't matter. Any paycheck that looks better won't matter. You will find that there's something driving you forward. And here's the key: the less you get in the way and you let that thing just drive you forward, the easier it's going to be. When I was starting out, I had that desire. I wanted out of my job. I didn't know what else I could do. I didn't know where else I would be. I just knew this isn't it. I can't keep doing this. My body was burning out. I was constantly sick. I realized I was just earning money to spend it on doctors, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And at some point I had that illumination. It's, you know, it's your job, Grace. And eventually, instead of spending years trying to change my thinking about my job, I left it. And I think sometimes we can get in trouble when we understand the power of thought and we can intellectualize what's going on for a long time, when in fact, there is often something bigger than you calling you in a direction. So as some of you know, my turning point came in a very strange way when I came home from work one day and my partner said, I don't want to be in London anymore. And you don't want to be in your job. We need to go. And that, to me, there was no doubt. People used to say to me, how did you have the confidence to leave? It wasn't confidence. I was just so done and so open to the possibility of a new way of being of service, even though I didn't know what it was. And so I left, and I left the paycheck, and in fact we both left. Just sometimes people think I must have some millionaire in the background funding this whole thing. No. We both were giving up everything to make the change. And so roll on a couple of years really, and it was about 18 months later, a year and a half later, that calling was getting stronger and stronger. I want to be of service. I want to be of service. I don't know how, but I want to be of service. And I had all sorts of perfectionist voices. I was self-conscious. I was unclear about how I could help people. I had absolutely no understanding of the online world. But none of that mattered. I just wanted to serve and help people. And something interesting happened. I was living in a part of Italy where nobody spoke English. And people started approaching me to help them with English. And I kept saying, no, I don't want to go back to teaching. I don't want to be a teacher. No, I don't do English, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, at some point, it got really frustrating having to ask for money to go to the supermarket. So I got over my ego and I said, okay, I'll teach you English. At least it's a few quid in my pocket that I don't have to ask for. And what happened in those scenarios of teaching English was nobody wanted to learn English. I was sitting with business type people individually, and they were talking to me about their problems in Italian and broken English. And I noticed that life had positioned me in an environment where people wanted my help. They didn't really want English lessons. And I would just show up and they would just talk to me and they would get it off their chest and I would try my best in terrible Italian and they would try their best in terrible English. But it was actually the feeling that was more important than the language. They felt clearer, better, I don't know, more confident. And what got really clear in me through that experience was maybe I can help people full time. So often we're rejecting what life is offering us. You know, like in my example, no, I'm not teaching English. I don't want to do that anymore. So often we're rejecting what life is inviting us to when the very thing we're being invited to is going to give us our next step. So for me, finally it landed, maybe I can help people. Maybe all the personal development I've been interested in and looking towards will actually become something more than just me learning. And so that initiated my path towards looking in the direction of coaching, looking in the direction of helping people have the confidence to go for what their soul is calling them to. Now, it wasn't without obstacles. Initially, as many of you know, I got started. I never came on camera. I was too self-conscious. I was worried about my image, my inability to articulate how I could help. So I hid behind a blog, a website, and a Facebook posting. But I was pretty good at hiding behind it because my desire to serve people was still strong. And all I did was share a bit about my life and my story, how I'd left my day job and started trying to start something new, trying to get going with something and really wanting to be of service. And little by little, people were drawn to, wow, I want to leave my job too. I've got an idea that I want to get going with, and I don't have the clarity or the confidence yet to make the leap. So it wasn't strategy and technique. If anything, it was sharing a bit of a story. And you all have that ability. You all can share your story, any part of it, your way. But that desire to be of service is the fuel. And that feeling you come from of wanting to be of service is so much more powerful and people's emails So I don't know where I got to, but I really like to check in with you. Is this helpful? And what do you want to hear a bit more about? Because I know I can go on and on with stories. So share with me, what is this helpful? What do you want to hear a bit more about?
Yeah, it's really helpful for me, Grace. I think the thing that I've sort of overcome, but that still keeps popping back, is that self-consciousness, right? And sort of, what will people think if I'm going to share this or do that? And I see you just doing despite those sorts of concerns. And I know I've learnt to do that because of you and watching you. But I think something around that would also, would be useful as well.
Oh, Neeta, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, thank you, honey. And you have, I mean, Neeta's one of my clients too, just so for some of you here that don't know Neeta. But Neeta, you have really started to share. You know, when you came to me, you wanted to share. And now I see you sharing. I see your emails. I see you coming on the camera with your group. I see the progress. And here's the thing, we can really underestimate our progress because we're so orientated towards what's not working, right? And actually, we can sometimes, we're wanting more. Well, it should be more. It should be more by now. So just want to take a minute and say, you know, honor the distance that you have come. And thank you for bringing up the self-conscious bit, because actually, Neeta, you were in the room when I had my big change. So about 5 years ago, this is where I want to talk to you about this freedom from perfectionist voice. About 5 years ago, I had come off this merry-go-round where I was traveling the world, seeing clients everywhere, very much enjoying my work, but knew something was off because I kept getting tired. And I was primed for this kind of 7-figure business model, and I was primed to go to this next level. I was very much involved in what I would describe as the American hustle. And I know it's not just in America. It was just a very, you know, willpower, white knuckle your way to the top. And I was friggin' exhausted. But I knew in my heart, I loved my work. I loved my clients. I loved coaching. And instead of going in that, continuing to go in that direction, I had a bit of a wake-up call that said, basically, I heard my wisdom say, no, stop. So I turned down the 7-figure business offer. I turned down the let's get you to the next level of success. And I retreated for a while. And as part of my retreating, I attended a retreat in Barcelona that Neeta happened to be on. And when I arrived in Barcelona that evening, I thought I didn't know how much in my head I actually was. But when I arrived, I was thinking to myself, why the hell would anyone run a retreat in this noisy city? Why the hell are we in this? Why have I paid all this money to come to this city with this level of noise? And then I walked into the facilitator of the retreat and I wasn't impressed with him either. You know, I had so much judgmental noise going on that my experience of the world was noisy. But innocently, I didn't realize that at the time. So of course, I blamed Barcelona for my experience. I blamed the mentor for my experience. I kept blaming the outside. And I'm sitting in the room on this retreat and everybody's very nice. There's lovely people there. And I'm suddenly aware of not being present to the coaching that I was engaging. I was worrying about, what do these other people think of me? What if I ask a question and I get it wrong? What if I don't say the right thing? My experience was suddenly so uncomfortable, and maybe for the first time in my life, I noticed the feeling of discomfort in my body. I felt my stomach muscles were always being held tight on my chest. I was kind of closed, and for some reason, my mind got quiet during that retreat. It's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about retreats versus a quick coaching here or there. My mind got so quiet that I finally realized that my discomfort was a feeling of self-consciousness that I just lived with for years. And that feeling of self-consciousness was manifesting in this kind of discomfort about myself, and I don't want to share too much, and I don't want to take up too much space, and I hope they like me, and what if I get the answer wrong? And ultimately what that was doing was I was feeling disconnected from everybody else in the room, probably including you, Neeta, because I think it was that very retreat you were on too. I was feeling, these were lovely people, but I was so caught in this tiny little self-conscious experience with the voice in my head constantly noisy about me and how I was measuring up. And that weekend I saw that. And because I saw that voice, that perfectionist voice, that's lost its grip. And my feelings of self-consciousness diminished. This is why I really, really believe that all you're looking for is an insight for your world to change. It's not willpower. It's not changing your thinking. It's not thinking better. It's not repeating affirmations. It's not reading success books. It's not thinking and emulating successful people. My mind got a bit of space from, let's call him Bob the drunk guy in our head, who's constantly there nagging at us about what we should do and how we should behave and how we should measure up. Everybody has a Bob at this, in a big city, there's a Bob at this side of every street corner. And he's some poor, drunk veteran who's screaming obscenities. And we walk past him and we say, oh God, that's terrible for him. Hope he'll be okay. We don't go to him for advice. And yet he is in our head. And he was so in my head that for all those years, and particularly that day, I just happened to hear him and get a bit of space from him. And as a result of that insight, Neeta, I stopped taking myself so seriously. I stopped taking that voice as truth. The voice didn't totally go away, it still shows up. But there's an awareness now that voice is, for want of a better description, just Bob setting off on one. And I have choice as to whether I go and engage the drunk idiot that he is and take advice from him, or whether or not I just show up and share anyway. And my ability to start sharing got easier. I knew there was a change when I started showing up on camera, when I started saying yes to live interviews, when I got approached by a TV, um, uh, production company here, and they said, we want to do this with you, and I didn't hesitate. I still have the feelings and the thinkings of the self-consciousness, but that disconnect from the world, because I was so caught in it, is gone. And that is what doubled my business in the space of a year. In fact, people, some of you maybe also, came forward and said, you're so much more approachable. What happened? I didn't know I was so unapproachable. I didn't know I was so uptight. You're so much softer. What did you do? I had no idea I was hard. I just lived in the experience of worrying about myself. I just lived in the experience of disconnect from others because the thinking in my head was so much louder that it looked to other people like I didn't give a shit about them. And that wasn't true. But this is golden, because when you're not in that self-conscious thinking, guess what? The world feels it from you and wants more of you. Those of you trying to get clients or get a coaching business, let that go. And consider that your ability to connect with people without all that blah, blah, blah going on is so, so powerful that they want more of you. So Neeta, I want to turn it back on you if you're open to it. You've heard my journey, okay? You've heard that for me, it wasn't about willpower. For me, it wasn't about getting better at showing up online, okay? What was it for you? Because you are someone who's gone. When you first arrived in Italy a couple of years ago to do that retreat, you weren't sharing, you wanted to share. What do you see happened for you that might help the audience too?
Yeah, I was definitely somebody who wanted to share. I wanted to connect with people, and I wanted to use social media like I'd seen everyone else using, but I'd really been, let's say, self-conscious. I always sort of had a tendency to hide myself away. And when I came on the retreat, which was amazing, I came with so much noise. It's unbelievable, in my head. I had a few bobs or a few drunken men in my head at the time. And yeah, so I was really insecure. I just keep second guessing myself. Should I do this? Should I do that? I try and share online and then do a little bit and then just stop. And I remember I do remember you kind of came at it in different ways with me, Grace, but I think on that retreat and even afterwards with the coaching, what really helped me was in a way, it was really being able to see how ridiculous it was. I was keeping myself stuck by really worrying about what people would think. And I started to really kind of unhook myself from that and in a way kind of gather quite naturally some evidence like, oh, well, when I share this, the things that I imagined would happen, the criticism, the judgments, well, none of that happened. In fact, there was usually support. And so I just started doing that. And then after a while, I think I'm not even aware of what it was, but I think I just, again, very naturally I must have I had an insight around that, saw it really deeply. And I just started doing loads of Facebook Lives in my group, did 100 consecutive days, that's this year, and loved it. So I have no hang-ups over doing Facebook Lives. And, I used to see you, Grace, just wherever you were, phone would go on and you would just talk about whatever came to you. And so that was really inspiring as well for me. And I've said yes to interviews as well. So I've done 2, I've got another one coming up, and I really enjoy them. And there's none of those concerns are really there at the forefront of my mind. I agree with you and what you said. For me too, they're there. I still get those thoughts, still feel insecure at times, but I sort of see it and carry on. And so that's made a huge difference to just, just being me and enjoying sharing in the way that works for me. And that's been great.
Yeah, I remember because you inspired me. I remember during lockdown, because we were locked down in Italy before you, Neeta, and I remember we were starting to come out of it, and you were still going with your Facebook lives, and it was brilliant. It was so brilliant to see.
I was inspired by you. I remember you've been doing these lockdown sort of videos, these lives every day, and that just planted a seed. And I thought, when we went into lockdown, I thought, yeah, you know what? Actually, I want to really connect with the women in my group and just be more present and available and be seen by them and heard, and so I need to do something. And so I ended up saying I would do 100 days, and ended up being 102, which is when we actually stopped lockdown. But but you were the inspiration for that. I saw you coming on every day, and I thought, I can do that. So
thank you. Well, and it's really, this is the thing that I want people to hear. This isn't about you becoming a better version of yourself before you show up and help people. I'm so curious about how the world and the marketing world is geared towards telling you that there's something wrong, there's something missing, you got to fix it, and then you'll show up and magically be brilliant. And so I just want you to hear through this and through the example with Neeta and anybody else, is that, when you have an insight, which is literally your mind quietens down and something becomes clear. In my case, it became clear that I was living self-consciously, and it changed the game completely. Now, your mind might be thinking, oh, Grace, come on, it can't be that easy. It's just about seeing something. It's just about having some sort of illumination of clarity. That's it. Yes, that's it. It's not about a better version. It's not about an improved identity. It's not about showing up in a way that you perfectly articulate everything. I don't do that. My internet goes all the time. It's really about letting your mind quieten down from that noise to the degree that you are ripe to see something new. You are ripe for an insight because it's already within you. And when that happens, change occurs. Willpower isn't needed. It's an effortless shift, but it's a big shift. And it's a shift that is not dependent on you reading the right books, having the right coach, staying in the right program. Everything I did prior to having that insight was very expensive. I had to stay in the right community. It looked to me like I had to be in the right place at the right time. Everything to discover that a quiet mind and an insight from within could change everything, and it didn't actually cost me that much. Wow. That was huge. I didn't have to better myself. Wow. Do you know how many books I threw out? How many podcasts I stopped listening to? My mind got quiet. And so for those of you that are listening, and it's like, oh, well, I don't think I have a busy mind. Trust me, with all love and respect, we all do. Okay, if you're not seeing clearly, if you're feeling that you can't see clearly, and that noise of what they're going to think of me, or I got to be better first, that's all the end, that's all the engine going too fast. So I don't know what you're hearing, but I want to check in. I'm totally available to keep going here. If you want to stay on with me. What's becoming clear? What question do you have? What do you object to? I'm totally open to that too. What sounds too good to be true? Marie-Pierre.
Thank you. It's more about, it's not what people would think of me. It's more, I feel that it's a pressure to perform. And I think it's linked to, there's also something around the loyalty towards my parents. Like if I stop being a lawyer, I better be being a really, really good coach. Does that make sense? Like if...
Yeah. So you have to be the best. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I have to perform, and if I live like the traditional way of doing things, like being a lawyer and having a good job and all of this, to transition to coaching, if on top, I mean, there's a feeling of I have to perform and to do really, really great. Does that make sense? Like there's it has to be worth it kind of thing. And there's a very strong sense of loyalty. I think that's what's actually happening. I think there's a sense that if I'm being a lawyer and being the good girl and being loyal to my parents who paid for study and everything. And there's also a feeling of loyalty towards my lineage. Like I'm thinking about my grandfather and my grandmother. I know that sounds crazy because they passed away. I'm 40 years old and, I'm supposed to be a big girl. But that's what's come up. And there's a sense of heaviness with that, and I have to perform. So it's what people would think of me. It's a lot stronger than that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's really good that you can see the gun you've got to your head. Like the family gun or the loyalty gun or the whatever you want to call it. Like it's helpful you can see that that's what gets in the way. But here's the good news. There is a space beyond that even though that gun is there, you're still going to move forward. That gun can't stop you. So I really encourage you, Marie-Pierre, to just know when you've got the gun to your head and pay less attention to it. I know that's not like the amazing answer you're looking for, but it's a game changer. Because you'll know when you're scaring yourself.
Can you repeat this last bit, please?
You'll know when you're scaring yourself.
You mean I'm scaring myself like on my own?
Does it, I don't know, let's see, does it feel scary when you put that level of pressure on yourself to be the best and to remain loyal to your lineage?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you see why you would stay where you are or go back to what you know when you have that type of gun to your head?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wow, it's a lot of pressure, actually. It's not just about being successful for me, it's just performing for them. So it's like, it's not just me, like it's like an entire lineage pressure. Like I have to be up to their expectations, but on few generations.
Yeah. So as you're going along, you want to be gentle with yourself, given how scary your thinking is right now about it. And usually what we do is, instead of being gentle with ourselves when we realize what sort of gun we're holding to our head, we tend to beat ourselves up more. We should be further ahead. This shouldn't be happening. My God, look at you. You're going back to your job. What are they going to say in that? Like, we tend to switch from the perfectionist voice to the judgmental voice.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Like, I find it hard to get out of bed in the morning when I'm in that state, never mind do anything else. So I'm happy to talk to you again, okay, a little bit more deeply. But for this particular moment, just see the gun you're holding up and just be a little gentle with yourself, given the size of that gun. But please know that gun's not real, it's optional. Part of my way of working is helping people put the gun down. I don't know if Elizabeth is still here, but Elizabeth is someone who can also speak to that level of pressure, maybe when she comes back on. Who else would like to share?
Thank you.
Yeah, sure, Marie-Pierre, you're welcome. Anyone else want to ask a question or hear something more deeply or make a comment? Karina, I saw you nodding your head. Did you want to say something?
No, but I was just really conversation. And I loved what you said about the gun being optional when it looks so real. I know that I have a different form of gun to my head than Marie-Pierre, but yeah, when it's there, I pay so much attention to it. I take it so seriously as if it means something, and then I don't take action. It's so helpful just being reminded. I like that visualization of it. It's just like I'm holding a gun, but it's optional. I don't need to.
Yeah.
So I guess, is there anything else that you could say around when you see the gun and you see that it's optional? Is there anything else in terms of, is it just that insight in itself that helps liberate us into action? Because I know I'm holding myself back from what I could be doing, and I'm wondering, I've kind of seen my gun. Maybe I haven't seen deeply enough, but it's optional. Maybe that's why it hit me just now.
And you know, again, we want to be okay with ourselves based on what we do see so far. You know, I heard you saying there, Karina, maybe you haven't seen it deep enough. Forget that. It's like the serum is in once you see it. And what's really helped me is, you know, the feeling of when the gun is there. And I'll give you an example. For me, that gun is usually urgency. It's a feeling of urgency. It's not pressure to perform for me. It's urgency. I need to hurry up. It needs to get done now. Oh my God, we're behind. Like, it was a habit of urgency, which then of course was very stressful. So for me, I just notice now when I'm in a feeling of urgency, and I know that's the gun. And rather than pulling the trigger and getting into more urgency, which is what I used to do, oh my God, this urgent feeling must mean I need to hurry up more. Now it's like, oh, this urgent feeling means I need to take my foot off the gas and go and relax. I'm getting too wound up. I'm getting too fast. It's just take your foot off, go relax, come back to it when you're less urgent. So that feeling's important, Karina, that you just recognize when you're holding that gun up. And yeah, there's always deeper to see and more to see, and sometimes we have insights that really change everything, and sometimes we just have little insights that, you know, the serum is still going in and our world is beginning to shift and change as a result.
I think the serum is still on me dissolving the next step after seeing the gun and being optional is that I still had judgment, and that's what's causing the stickiness, I think. And so that's it for me to drop.
Yeah. Well, that's great you're saying that. You know, that's why I wanted to have this webinar today, because it's again, we're back to that perfectionist voice. That perfectionist voice can show up as judgment about yourself. It can show up as scaring yourself. It can show up as a low mood, kind of like that gets you stuck in a whole world of I'm not enough, you know? So what you're seeing for yourself, it is helpful and enough. You know, and there are some practical things. You know, I'm very much about the practical too. I haven't created this level of momentum and still in business 7 years later without the practical. But see, that practical is easy to take to action and get clear on without the gun, which is why I keep pointing people back to getting some freedom from this level of insecurity first, as then a means to being able to implement the practical, have clarity about the exact steps. Because when this isn't here, we are clear. When that gun isn't running the show, we're not living life tense. You know, I was just thinking of that earlier today. I was thinking, you know, because I went out for a walk with my dogs this morning, and then I went for a coffee with a friend, and then I made lunch, and then I had the hairdresser fix my hair, and then I had a meditation. And it occurred to me, Grace, are you going to prepare for this webinar or not? And I thought, am I too relaxed about this webinar? Should I be doing all the things I used to do to get ready for a webinar? And it occurred to me, oh my God, my experience of showing up used to be so tense. It used to be rigged with preparation weeks in advance and all day long and all sorts of like stress and tension. And now it's not. And part of that is I know when I'm holding a gun to my head. And guess what? It doesn't have to be. When I think of the enormous amounts of effort I used to get my head into, and I thought that's where the money came from. Oh, it's because I had enough tension and stress and enough white knuckling that's what brought the money through. That's what brought the clients in. No, it didn't. That was optional. I didn't know that. Elizabeth, I'm wondering if you're back. If you're not, it's okay. You can unmute when you come back. So I don't know, is this helpful? Please let me know what you're hearing. Is there something more specific? Is there something relevant to you that you'd like me to share? Kevin, are you looking perplexed, or are you looking like you have a question?
Yeah, I think for me, I think since I've been looking in the direction of the principles, my mind, generally speaking, is now so much quieter than it ever has been. And I feel that the fact that I'm so much calmer and so much quieter is almost a barrier to me taking action, because I'm just chilled and I'm so relaxed about things that I almost think I don't need to do that because it's just going to get me up in my head, and I don't need to get up in my head. Therefore, I'm just not going to take action. Could you perhaps talk to that, please?
Oh, I love that. I'm glad I called on you there. Yeah. Well, that has happened to me, because when I first started understanding these principles behind every experience in life, my mind would get so quiet too. And what I noticed was my ambition fell away. And I used to get worried about that. Where did your ambition go? And then sometimes I would just be in such a quiet mind that I felt like I was vegged out on the sofa for a long time. Like I just don't know what to do. It's just a lovely quiet mind. What happens now? Here's what I find so hopeful. At some point I was moved into an action. It wasn't coming up with the action and getting into it. It was like, oh yeah, this makes sense to do next. It was an actioning that was so foreign to the way I had been used to actioning that it was almost a little bit untrustworthy, because I wondered if it would actually work. It just didn't have any drama with it. So I suppose my short answer to you is you don't have to worry about not getting into action because you've relaxed. But the action you think you should be getting into might not be the one you end up being moved into. Tell me if that's too esoteric, Kevin. What do you hear in that?
See, my thinking is very much that I'm not attached to the outcome of my coaching business. You know, it really is not a reflection on me. I'm not putting stress and pressure on myself. I'm already working, 3 days as a GP. I don't need it for the income. And, but it's what I want to do. I have, like you were talking about earlier on in the call, I have a desire, I have a motivation to help. But going from an NHS practice where my diary is filled for 4 weeks in advance, and I've had nothing to do with that whatsoever, to creating your own coaching practice where you've gone from one extreme to the other, where you've got nobody, and you know, it feels like it's kind of almost taking myself out of a relaxed and calm peace of mind and putting myself into a situation where it messes everything up, you know, in order to achieve what I actually want. But I don't need.
Well, and I'll tell you what I hear, and like, I hear you looking at it in a kind of all or nothing type of way. I'm going to go from this to that. I'm going to go from all of this to zero. And that's not necessarily the way you'll be moved to follow this desire you have. So I would kind of caution what you're making up about what's going to happen if you follow this desire, because that's where you're having a gun to your head. You know, oh, I'm going to lose my sense of peace and well-being. Oh, I'm maybe going to have no clients after having 4 weeks filled with people. Oh, I'm going to have to find them all myself. Now, there's a little bit of, yeah, that's going to be a big change, Kevin, right? When you go out on your own. However, even with what you're making up about it, you can trust the desire to move you. But it's optional if you scare yourself in the process. It's optional if you lose your peace of mind in the process. It's optional if you go from lots of people to zero in the process.
Yeah, I think that's true because you know, I have worked with a couple of clients already on the coaching side of things. So, and I've done almost nothing that has happened through word of mouth. So even by doing absolutely nothing, I've still attracted 2 clients.
Yeah.
So I literally couldn't have done any less.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. And you know what? You know what I want to share here for everybody? The fact you're coming at this from a quiet space and a desire to serve, I'm not surprised people are showing up out of nowhere. See, people don't believe that that's enough. And I really want you to hear that, everybody, today. That is enough. Let Kevin be your example. That is enough. And it is not about having an income in the background, right? It is not like, oh, well, I can have peace of mind when I have an income. I can have peace of mind when I've got 3 clients. If you're really, really worried about income and that's going to get in the way of your ability to help others, find a different way to make income in the meantime. Go make income in a different way as you get going, if you need to. I personally didn't need to do that. I don't believe you have to do that. I'm kind of from the school of thought, if you really want it, you'll get it and you'll figure it out and you'll move mountains, it'll come. But I didn't have levels and levels of scary thinking about money going on. I had levels and levels of scary thinking about myself. So, you know, you'll know what you need. But this is a perfect example in what Kevin's sharing, that desire to serve and a free, clear mind is enough. Even if you were in a desert with that, they'd find you. I remember many times where I just totally switched off in my business and I was just completely on retreat. I'm just taking time for myself. And those were always the times I got inundated with more opportunity because I just wasn't showing up with anything on my mind. In some cases, I wasn't showing up at all. So I really hope that this is hopeful to those of you listening, that there is a way to do it, that there is a graceful approach rather than a cookie cutter, white knuckled willpower approach. And that in fact, when we are not scaring ourselves, we're highly productive and we take action. When we're not scaring ourselves with the guns of perfectionism or what will my family think or what about the money or any of that, we have a deep clarity of what to do next, and we have a feeling of well-being inside, and that is very attractive to human beings because they're looking for that right now. Many have lost this sense of well-being. So I think that's about where I'd like to stop today. And my invitation to you would be that, you know, you get a sense of what I do at this stage, you get a sense of what you need. And if you know that you want someone to cross the bridge with you, that happens to be how I help people. So get in touch, gracefulcoaching@gmail.com. We can speak a little bit more deeply. If you want to hear about some of my programs that I have with individuals, get in touch and I'll share that with you. In the meantime, I would encourage you to re-listen to this webinar and to orientate yourself towards a quieter space rather than more and more and more information and more and more and more learning, to retreat, as it were. Any big insights I ever got, any big transformation I ever got came from retreating first. Because as the mind quietens down from those insecure voice, that insecure voice, you just have common sense, you have wisdom, you have clarity, and you have confidence to do what you need to do too. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope it's been helpful. I'll be back with you all soon, I'm sure. Stay in touch. If you have me on Messenger, if you have me on Facebook, please send me an instant messenger and I can add you to our live webinar group so that you have access to any webinar happening at any time. All right. Lovely to see you. Lots of love, everybody.
Thanks, Grace.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.